Hello there and welcome here. Today I'll be talking about how you can naturally produce dopamine to prevent you from buying things and spending way too much money just to reach the same conclusion. And I'll also cover a few practical things you can do to add friction to your spending to help you spend less. So let's get into it. So I'm going to sound like a bit of a GP right now, but the three best things you can do to help increase your dopamine production is to eat right, get high quality sleep, and engage in regular exercise. But those three things are quite vague. What do you mean by eating right? Eating fruits and vegetables, obviously, that sort of thing, but what are the top foods that you should eat to actually increase your dopamine production? So there's three sections. There are lean meats, there are plant-based proteins, and there's dairy and fruit. So lean meats I would focus on to increase your dopamine production are chicken, turkey, and fish. And for plant proteins, you can focus on almonds, pumpkin seeds, soy, beans, and lentils. Whereas it comes to fruit and vegetables and dairy, I'd focus on milk, yogurt, avocados, and bananas. Those are the main foods. If you can fit one or two, or preferably all of them, in a single day, it'll greatly increase your dopamine production to prevent you from searching for other ways of getting that dopamine and buying things and wasting your money and creating a sort of spending guilt, which will make you feel worse and lead you to seek dopamine elsewhere as well. The second thing, physical activity. So if you're not used to doing regular exercise, it can be quite intimidating, and just saying physical activity, then what does that really mean? What does that equate to? In the essence of creating more dopamine, you want to focus on sort of cardiovascular activities. The main two being like running and cycling, and then also some like strength training would be good too. But I wouldn't go, it can be quite intimidating to just start running. And if you don't have a bike, then you can't cycle. But yeah, kind of like going out and running in public can almost feel quite embarrassing, or like, oh, people are looking at me and I'm not running as well as the marathon runners I see on the TV. And you can feel quite, I don't know, off-putting going out for runs. So I'd recommend not jumping into the deep end if you're new to physical exercise. The first thing I would do is simply go for walks. But also going on walks if you're not used to regularly walking, if you can find the time even. It's good to come out with a plan of your walk. So sort of going out walking aimlessly can also feel a little bit intimidating, because you're like, well, where am I actually going? How long should I walk for? And this walk is kind of boring. It's ones I've done like often if I'm leaving the house to go places. But just to get into like a bit of a routine of going on walks, I'd recommend just simply walking to the shops. Just do a round trip, walk to the shops, buy yourself a little snack as a reward, and then right back and come home. And also, just by doing that walk, even if it's like 15 minutes or something, also just by doing that walk, you're like completing a task. So naturally your brain gets like a little hit of reward dopamine just by achieving things in the day. So it's quite good to even just do a walk, and you're getting moving, you're creating dopamine, and then you're completing a task which adds more dopamine, which is just a win-win all round. And then you can move on to more sort of physically intense exercises when you get more comfortable with it. Sure, you can go for like a little jog or a little run, work up to that, or just do things at home like push-ups and sort of like jumping jacks even, or if you have a skipping rope, go crazy. And you'll soon realize that by doing these small things that you are generally creating more dopamine, and you feel less of a need to find it elsewhere through like drinking alcohol, using nicotine products, or scrolling online and buying things just to sort of make you feel something, or just change your current mood even. And then the third one, getting consistent sleep. So what does that really mean though? Like what's good quality sleep and how do you get there? One thing that people with ADHD sort of struggle with when it comes to getting quality sleep is too much screen time. Because we're used to seeking dopamine from our screens, whether that's on social media, watching YouTube videos, or doom scrolling. Tends to be the main one right now. And you can do that late into the night. You know, you're up until sometimes even like 4 in the morning, just trying to chase some dopamine, some satisfaction. And you're staring at the screen the whole time, and that blue light going in your eyes can ruin your sleep as well and makes it less high quality sort of thing. So what you want to do is the first few steps of seeking dopamine elsewhere through your food and exercise, and then you'll feel less of a need to sort of doom scroll before bed. So you can be more easily available to just like, makes it much easier for you to not go on your phone before bed and ruin your sleep. And you should aim for like 7 to 9 hours. That's what we're always told, nice 8 hours sleep. But it really does make all the difference, because if you don't get rested, the dopamine receptors, so if you're like tired and sort of groggy, your dopamine receptors in your brain are also the same. So it's like if you're like walking around and you're tired, oh, I need a coffee. Your dopamine receptors are like the same. They're like little people in your brain going, oh, I'm too tired as well. Like I'm not going to work properly, sort of thing, which leads you to seek dopamine elsewhere, and usually leads to you spending money. And then herein lies spending too much, leading to spending guilt, and the cycle continues. What are some practical things you can do also to add friction to your spending? What people with ADHD are quite bad at is visualizing future consequences, especially when it comes to spending. It's sort of like, that's later me's problem. I'm only spending £50, it's no big deal, whatever. And then it gets to future you and you're like, oh, why did I do that? Why have I spent? Now I've got like nothing in my bank account. You're like, oh, might as well spend the last of what I have on something that I want, because I can't go towards something meaningful anyways. And it just adds to that sort of destructive cycle. So some things you can do. This one seems really simple, but like mentally it's quite difficult. It's deleting like Apple Pay from your phone. So like deleting saved cards, because by having them on your phone, you formulate spending habits of ease of spending, especially when you're on a night out and you're chasing that dopamine through alcohol and physical sort of interaction and whatever. And you just tap all night because you're like, oh yes, my unlimited money machine. I won't realize the consequences till tomorrow. But by adding that sort of friction of having to pay with your physical card, especially by taking it out, and if you put it in and you have to type your code in, it sort of tricks your brain by adding a sort of layer of embarrassment, or like, oh, I feel awkward taking up so much time at the bar, everyone else is just tapping. And it almost stops you from going up and spending more, because you trick your brain into being sort of, you use your ADHD and sort of anxiety that can come with it against you to help you save money, which is pretty neat. Another thing you can do is sort of unsubscribe from your triggers. So I've talked about it in a previous video about impulse spending and realizing what your triggers are that make you impulse spend, whether that's you're stressed or anxious, you're seeking dopamine, or you just want to change your mood. If you have subscriptions, or you have an app dedicated to like clothing apps, if that's your thing, or if you're on Instagram and you often buy, you know, like the ads that come up and you go, oh yes, Neurogum, I need that. You click on it and you buy things on there. A good thing to stop you spending is just by taking that out of the equation. And it's a lot easier said than done to be like, stop using social media, or Stop scrolling through clothing apps that gives you temporary dopamine when you look at things and you feel the need to buy them and whatever. Just by not having those apps anymore, just saves you money, especially like things like Deliveroo and Just Eat and these sort of takeaway apps as well. Getting rid of them prevents you from having the option to spend that money on getting a takeaway, and it forces you to actually make something yourself. So even if you just delete the apps for a short period of time and then work on the methods I've mentioned about creating dopamine yourself, you'll feel less inclined to re-download it in the future and spend the money. So yeah, quality sleep, exercise, and eating right. And the foods I mentioned, a nice neat little meal you can do for breakfast every day to get you started with that nice little oomph of dopamine is by combining multiple of the food groups. So if a great breakfast to have is a granola that has pumpkin seeds and almonds in it with some Greek yogurt and a chopped up banana and sprinkle some honey on top, and that's 4 of the foods I mentioned in one little meal to start your day with a nice little hit of dopamine. And it also takes sort of that anxiety out of having to plan meals throughout the day and planning breakfast and then planning lunch and planning a dinner and then making all the food, and then you don't have that ingredient and I have to go out and buy it. And it's just like an ongoing anxiety cycle, which can also lead you to order a takeaway, because if you're sort of mentally depleted from the day, the last thing you want to do is then plan a meal. So then you buy one in, and then you feel guilty about buying it in, and then you get stressed, and then you get depressed, and it's an ongoing vicious cycle. But even if you just try for a week, just have a granola with yogurt, a banana, chuck some blueberries in there, get some nice antioxidants, bit of honey on top. If you just have that every day for a week, maybe, hopefully, you might start to see a difference. And then if you add a walk in each day as well, then it's worked for me. But hopefully that can work for you too, to sort of help create dopamine naturally and prevent you from having to find it elsewhere by spending money. But hopefully that's helpful. And I'll see you in the next one.